Hello again, and welcome to WoW Basic Training. Today we're going to be going into the Marksmanship Hunter. This is my main, so this is what I know the most. First thing, just getting right into it, the first thing you need to know, pardon me, is that your mastery is the most important stat for you. And the reason for that is because there's a 4 to 1 multiplier on your mastery. Every percent of mastery you get gives you a 4% bonus damage to anything that costs focus. So whenever you spend focus on anything, the damage from that is going to be increased by your mastery times 4. So like right now, my mastery is 24.91%, and that means that I have a 24% increase to my range of my abilities, but a 99% increase to damage from those abilities, which means abilities like aim shot cost focus, right? And so that increases the damage. Now, the damage of the increase from mastery is reflected in the tooltip already. It's baked inside, so you can see the difference as soon as you change something out. Like change out one piece of gear for another. Let's see if I have anything that has 2 different pieces of gear. Like I have these 870 legs that have 975 mastery, and I'm just gonna get rid of that and go to 875. I do have these 875 legs. They're higher item level, but mastery is more important for me because it's 4% per percent of mastery. So I brought it down to 23%. So my aim shot went down by about like 10k per aim shot. So we're gonna go back to that, and yeah. So the important thing to understand here is that the informational panel for marksmanship on the specialization page is not at all going to reflect how it works for you at level 110. And the main reason is because arcane shot is not in your rotation, multi-shot is not even in your spellbook. Neither of these will be because of sidewinders. So I'm going to start from the very bottom. Basically, sidewinders is your builder. It builds your focus. It gives you 50 focus at base, but because of your artifact talents, of which I have all of them here, but your artifact talents, there's a talent that gives you an extra 5. I think it's right here. I can't remember exactly where it is. Increases the amount. Oh, here you go. Sidewinders generates 5 additional focus. Right. So critical focus as a trait of your artifact weapon gives you 5 more. So Sidewinders has 2 charges, has a 10.4 second recharge rate with my haste. Currently it's normally 12 seconds, so my haste brings it down by 1.6 seconds. That replaces both arcane shot and multi-shot. So like if I were to go to say piercing shot, you'll notice that now I have arcane shot down here, and I have, it doesn't say, this is a little quirk of marksmanship, it says I've unlearned sidewinders and I've learned piercing shot, but it doesn't say that, oh, I've also learned arcane shot and multi-shot. Like you'll see right here, multi-shot is in my spellbook now, right? But watch this. Boom. I hit sidewinders, and where did multi-shot go? It's not there. Okay. So your stat priority is going to be mastery, then haste and crit are kind of equal. You want a certain amount of haste to get your sidewinders recharge rate down to about 10.2, 10.4. I'm a little haste starved right now, I think, a little understacked on haste. And this is where you would use like simulation craft every so often to, every time you change out gear, to redo your stat weights. Like right now, if I would go to stat weight score, my marksmanship stat weights, I have haste at 10.2, mastery is 11.08. So, and then crit, versatility is actually more important than crit right now because I'm overstacked on crit. I have 32% crit, so versatility is actually more important for me right now. But those third and fourth stats really don't matter so much. As long as you're stacking your first and second ones, you're going to be golden. Now, that means you enchant for mastery, gem for mastery. You want as much mastery as possible. Mastery is by far the most important stat for you. Let me see here. Anyway, getting into the talents, you're going to want to take Lone Wolf. You don't want to have a pet around. increases your damage by 18%, but you can no longer use Call Pet. The main reason for this is that like careful aim is so situational. It's like, okay, aim shot, arcane shot, mark shot, multi shot, 20% increased crit chance against targets above 80% health. Things don't stay above 80% health for very long, especially in a burst. The initial burst of a boss, like Guarm or something, where you have a heroism at the beginning. It goes down so fast. It's not doing you any good for 80% of the fight. Let's just put it that way. And it's actually more like 85% of the fight because the burst at the beginning will bring them down below 80% really quick. Those crits deal an additional 30% damage over 8 seconds, so that's a bleed, but who cares? It's like, great, you can crit and do lots of damage at the top end, but at the bottom end you don't do much. Now, combine that thought process with the fact that Bullseye, your number one gold trait that you're going to want to shoot for, is for anything below 20% health. That leaves you, if you were to take both of those, basically it leaves you with this dead zone between 20 and 80% where you're not really getting any benefit. This straight up 18% damage boost across everything is great. You don't have to worry about keeping a pet out. You don't have to worry about DPS loss because your pet is traveling from one mob to another to another. You don't have to worry about your pet dying, that kind of thing. So Lone Wolf is still the top thing here. Now, steady focus, you're never going to have to worry about focus gen, so you don't have to worry about increasing your focus generation. And I never even tried this with Sidewinders. I think Sidewinders would activate it with just once. Using Arcane Shot or Multi-Shot 3 times in a row increases your focus regen by 25%. So I'm thinking a single Sidewinders would trigger that, so let's just try it. Yep, boom, right, there it is. So Sidewinders would trigger that, but you don't need it. And it's definitely not worth not having your pet. So anyway, lock and load. This is a proc-based thing. A lot of hunters really don't like it. The RNG that you have with it is just bad. But it's not. It's better than Black Arrow and it's better than True Aim. Basically, it's the lesser of three evils. The reason True Aim sucks is because of target switching. You have to stay on the same target for a long time to stack up to eight times on the target, and it's just not worth it. The ramp up time is too slow, and you lose a lot of your ability to do target switching. Fights like Odin, for example, in Trial of Valor, the Trial of Valor version, you have to target switch a lot. True Aim might be good on fights like Guarm, but then you think about this. Lock and Load gives you 2 free aim shots, so that's a focus savings on the one hand, and it plays into your mastery on the other, because aim shots, even if they cost you no focus, they are focus spending abilities. And if you read the tooltip for your mastery very carefully, focus spending abilities are increased. So anything, instead of just listing all of the focus spending abilities, what they're doing there is saying, we're just going to say anything that costs focus. Basically, all of your attacks except for Sidewinders and Arcane Shot, that kind of thing. To build, the non-builders, the spenders, right? So included in that list would be like Wind Burst, Aim Shot, Barrage, Marked Shot. They all cost focus on the front end normally. So Lock and Load, it applies to your aim shot. It gives you those free aim shots, and your aim shots are being increased by your mastery. So after a certain amount of mastery, you're going to want those free aim shots anyway, and that's a pure DPS boost. Post haste and Far Strider, I alternate between. If I need to disengage more than once every 20 seconds, or if I know I'm going to need to disengage more than once every 20 seconds, and I have a high enough crit, I will take Far Strider. Crits have a 10% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on disengage. So this has saved my butt quite a few times, especially like on Heroic Odin, where I need to disengage off the bad floor during Phase 3. But Post Haste also works, especially like on Guarm, so I'll switch between the two. Like I'll use Post Haste on Guarm so that I can disengage and get into the appropriate Fire Breath, for example. So these two are interchangeable. I would never use Trailblazer. It's like, great, my movement speed is increased by 30% anytime I have not attacked for 3 seconds. That's maybe good for, like, traveling around the world, but that's what you got mounts for, right? Patient Sniper. This is absolutely key. First of all, let's just look at explosive shot. Explosive shot sucks because it's a slow-moving shot. You have to monitor it. You have to hit it. Again, you have to activate it a second time in order to explode the projectile when it gets close enough. So you're kind of, it's relying on player skill rather than the character to do what needs to be done. It just sucks. Now, Sentinel applies Hunter's Mark to all enemies near the target. Doesn't give you a range of near the target, but it's a 30-second recharge. It's just not that great, especially when Sidewinders, when it procs so often, the Hunter's Mark is on the target, already. Patient Sniper increases your maximum focus. Now, I'm thinking they're changing this for 7.1.5, where they're saying it's not going to increase your maximum focus by 30. I think they're removing that, so you're going to have a maximum of 120 anyway. But it causes the target to be vulnerable and increases the mark shot and aim shot damage by 150%, but it only lasts for 6 seconds instead of stacking. So if we get rid of that, then we have, and we look at our spell book, Hunter's Mark, and what's that called? Not bombardment. The vulnerability aspect of things. I can't remember where it is, but when something's vulnerable, it stacks up like a certain number of times, right? So yeah, vulnerable, damage taken from mark shot and aim shot increased by 50%. Do it again, by 100%. Do it again. It only stacks up twice. Okay, yeah, that's right. Vulnerable stacks up twice normally, so there's a 100% bonus to your aim shots and everything, but it takes a little bit to ramp up on the target. It lasts for 30 seconds. And yeah, it's just aim shot critical strike chances increased by 16%. Great, big deal. Let's feign death and go back to Patient Sniper. So now instead of 30 seconds, it lasts only 6, but you can reapply it so often that you can keep a vulnerable uptime quite often. And now think about this: it increases your aim shot damage by 150%, right? But it only lasts 6 seconds. So who cares about the duration of 6 seconds? You can weave it enough and keep it up most of the time. The extra 50% damage is on top of the extra damage based on your mastery. So your 1% of mastery gives you 4% bonus damage, and that 4% of the bonus damage actually translates into 6% bonus damage when you consider Patient Sniper. For every percent of crit or of mastery. So you're increasing your bonus damage by another 50%, or it's 100%, 150%. So 4% becomes 10%, right? Because it's doubling your extra 4% from mastery to 8, and then an extra 50% on top is another 2. So, that's giving you 10% bonus damage. For every point of percent of mastery, you're getting 10% bonus damage to your arcane shots, or to your aim shots. Binding Shot is great utility. Wyvern Sting is good for like pre-CC. Camouflage is good for your own personal survival, but Binding Shot is awesome for raids, especially when there's like lots of trash or mythic pluses, and you just boom, Binding Shot down, and then you can go up and burst shot on them, right, and knock them away from the Binding Shot in order to stun them. It's good for soloing as well if you get a lot of stuff that you need to take care of. So you Binding Shot, burst shot, and then you can, just disengage and go from there. Or if they're chasing you, just Binding Shot and then disengage, and they'll keep following you out of the Binding Shot and get stunned. The nice thing about Binding Shot, and this is something a lot of people don't realize, is that it stuns them for 5 seconds, and there's no provision there for breaking the stun if they take damage. A lot of stuns that other people do, it'll stun them until they take damage, and then the stun goes away. So almost instantly the stun will go away. I consider Binding Shot to be a raid damage reduction cooldown for the tanks. If tanks are like getting rocked and they need to, especially in a Mythic Plus, they're getting rocked. They need to, like imagine in a where there's a Mythic Plus with the affix of necrotic. you can stun them for 5 seconds, long enough for the tank to get away and start kiting, and then they're far enough away so that necrotic stacks can drop off of the tank. So it really is a damage reduction cooldown for the tanks if they're getting their asses kicked. All right, so next one. I've tested all three of these, and I found that Barrage is best for multi-target. Murder of Crows can be good if you have the occasional ad that can go down within 15 seconds to reset the cooldown. Way too much micromanagement for Murder of Crows most of the time. Murder of Crows is more of a Beastmaster talent because the crows act as a pet for the Beastmaster, which plays into their mastery. Barrage is your default go-to, and most hunters hate that, especially because, I mean, that fucking fan of Barrage is just incredibly wide, and it hits so many things. Here's the other thing a lot of people don't understand about Barrage. Barrage, if you notice here my range on it, it says 50-yard range. 50-yard range. Keep in mind, my mastery is 24%. In fact, I had it 25% before, but that 24% increases my ranged abilities. The range of my ranged abilities is increased by that percentage. A lot of tanks don't understand this, and you need to understand this as well. Like, I have this add-on range display. I'm 30 to 35 yards away, 35 to 40 yards away. Most people are like, oh, okay, I'm at max range right now. 40 to 45 yards away, 45 to 50. I'm still in range of this training dummy. I'm still in range of it, right? I just now went out of range, right? You see, these things all went red right there. That's a long way. So you want to make sure that, you know, when you're barraging, you're at max range. You want to only hit the things you want to hit. Like right now, I'm going to hit only this target. I'm not going to hit this one, right? So I'm only hitting this target right now. But if I move forward a little bit and I do my barrage, it'll hit both of them, right? See, I'm in range of that one. I'm in range of that one. I'm in range. I am in range of that one. So I'm in range of all of these now. So if I target this, it's going to hit all of them. You see how it's actually hitting all of them there? It's incredible. You got to be careful. You really got to be careful. One thing that I often do is let's say this person is the tank and this is the mob that they're attacking. Instead of being behind the tank and attacking the mob forward and the rest of the mobs, you know, like the next trash pulls up ahead of me, I'll jump ahead like this and face the tank, and I'll attack the mob from in front of the tank with my back to the other mobs so that those other mobs don't accidentally get pulled. So I'm looking backwards at the rest of the group. It's a good way to prevent yourself from accidentally pulling with barrage. Anyway, that said, Sidewinders is by far your best ability right now. 2 charges, and you'll notice you got the 2 charges here, aim shot. Your main rotation is going to be build with Sidewinders, fill with aim shot, and if you ever have a mark shot available, use it. And Sidewinders applies vulnerable to the target, right? To every single target. And if it's got a proc, it'll also put a hunter's mark on the target, which allows you to mark shot. Now you'll notice I have these weak auras here. I have my barrage cooldown right here. I got my true aim, or true shot cooldown here. And these 3 things are the important things. Here's my Sidewinders charges. I got 2 of them. Shows my cooldown, my recharge rate on it, and this will light up when I have a proc. I also have another icon that'll show up here when I have the marking targets proc. So I want to be able to keep track of, is it marked? Is it vulnerable? How long until my next Sidewinders is available? And all that. So here's your basic rotation. First of all, Wind Burst applies vulnerable to the target. You never want to do an aim shot unless the target is vulnerable. If you ever get to that point, you're messing up your rotation, in my opinion. So here's what you do. We're going to start with this range training. I mean, ignore the fact that I'm going to be hitting these other guys too. On the pull, you're going to hit a Wind Burst, because it is your number one DPS per execute time. So your damage done per second, per 1.3 seconds for Windburst is better than the damage you do for most of the time with aim shots and other things. So it also makes the target vulnerable so that you can use your aim shot. So I start off with a Windburst, and if I hit Alt 3 here, it actually does True Shot along with an aim shot. This is a macro here that does True Shot and aim shot at the same time to maximize my True Shot time. I will go Windburst, aim shot, and throughout that rotation, I'm hoping that I will get a marking targets proc so that I can Sidewinders to not only regain focus, but to also refresh vulnerable, and to mark the targets so that I can use a marked shot. Essentially, when you open up, you want to aim shot until you dump all the focus you can, and once you've done 2 of them, or 3, depending on if you have a marked shot proc or not, then you rebuild with Sidewinders and you go from there. The priority for me is always Sidewinders if I need to, and if I need to get focus, if I have a marked, only if I have a marked shot proc, or if I need to I really just desperately need the focus. You really want to avoid using Sidewinders until you have a marked shot proc, but sometimes you have no choice. This is what I'm saying. I do not barrage on cooldown for single target. Barrage on cooldown for single target is a DPS loss. And I'll show you the whole rotation. So I'm going to just call out what I'm doing as I do it. Windburst, Alt 3 for that. Aim shot, see I got the proc. 3 aim shots in a row. Sidewinders, aim shot, marked shot, aim shot, marked shot, and my legendary is procking over and over again. Sidewinders, aim shot, marked shot. I got a proc for lock and load, so aim shot, aim shot, aim shot. And I'm watching this right now. Sidewinders, aim shot, Windburst, marked shot, aim shot. So I'm using all of the procs that I have as I need to. And now that aim shot went off when vulnerable was done, so that was a wasted aim shot. And so yeah, I just had to Sidewinders without being vulnerable. Windburst gives me another vulnerable. I got lock and load proc. I want to use up as much focus as I can. Just barely got that off in time. Now, the reason why haste needs to be a certain amount but no more is because you want to be able to fit as many aim shots into your vulnerable window as possible so that you don't ever have that aim shot go off right as vulnerable drops, just before vulnerable or just after vulnerable drops. Now, the reason why this is a priority list and not an actual rotation has a lot to do with the lock and load procs. You have to think about, am I going to do another aim shot or not? Am I going to have to do another Sidewinders or not? The lock and load procs save you the 50 focus, so you don't have to do Sidewinders as often. It gives you time to rebuild your Sidewinders charges. The other thing is, Windburst does have a better DPS per execute time than just about anything else. Like your marked shots are by far your best, but you don't always have them available. The only other thing is I don't always Windburst on cooldown. Like I'll hold it in my back pocket because I may need it to refresh my vulnerable because I don't have a Sidewinders proc or I don't have a Sidewinders charge available. So I'll use that to refresh my vulnerable, and it's just you kind of get a feel for it after a while, right? So I'm sitting here sustaining like 530k, but that's largely because I'm marking like these other training dummies with the Sidewinders and they're getting hit by mark shot. So this is like an AoE type of rotation. So literally my entire rotation is these 4 buttons. Now if I have to move, and this is another reason why I don't barrage on cooldown, a lot of fights require to have movement while sustaining DPS. It is a DPS cooldown for a patchwork style fight where you're just standing still, but a lot of fights require to move. So a good hunter will plan for those movement times. Like let's say you have Nithendra, you know for a fact that you're going to get rot at the worst possible time. Everything's on cooldown. You have to stand still for your aim shots, your Windburst, and well, shit. Now I have nothing in my arsenal so that I can move while I'm doing my rot or when I drop my rot. So like Or for example, another great reason why you hold on to your barrage is like on Nithendra Mythic, where you have to use your AoE to break people out of mind control. You want to hold on to that. You may use it on the pull, knowing that you're not going to need it for another 30 seconds. But then when it gets close to where she's going to do a breath and a mind control, you're like, well, I have you know only 10 seconds before I'm going to need that barrage. I better not use it right now. So I hold it in my back pocket so that I can use it to break people out of mind control. If you think about barrage as not one of your main abilities, but as a utility ability for burst AoE and for when you need to move, that's what you should be thinking of barrage as. Otherwise, let me see. Some things change based on the legendaries you have. Like I have Zevrim's Hunger, which sometimes my marked shots have they have a 15% chance to not remove Hunter's Mark, so I can mark shot twice in a row. The important thing about that, it changes my rotation a little bit. Like during my main rotation, I will not double aim shot before my marked shot. I will double aim shot after my marked shot, so that if so I can reserve extra focus, so I'm not waiting on focus to do my marked shot again. Like if I get down to less than 50 or about 50, focus, and I get a proc on my Zevrim's Hunger. See, like I did just then, and I don't want to be out of focus. I want to be able to use that proc from my legendary without having to sit around waiting for focus. And I don't want to, use a marking targets proc from my Sidewinders to build the focus so that I can, because then it marks the target anyway. So it's a wasted proc on my legendary, right? So see there, I just had two in a row there, two marked shots in a row. So that changes things a little bit. Another thing that you might change up is like if you get the boots, reduce the remaining cooldown on true shot is reduced by 1 second each time you cast a damaging shot. This also points towards not using barrage on cooldown, because you use a damaging shot and it's a 3-second channel that only gives you 1 second off of your true shot. But at this point, if you can get the right relics to reduce your true shot down by, right now I have only one. My blood relic reduces the cooldown on true shot by 40 seconds, right? Yeah, it's 10 seconds per. If I were to have all three of my relics, reducing it by 10 seconds each, I'd have it reduced by 60 seconds. So instead of a 2.33 minute cooldown, it would be a 2-minute cooldown. With the boots, at that point, I would consider putting True Shot as part of a macro for my aim shot, to automatically cast it every time I aim shot, or try to cast it every time I aim shot. So I'm using it on cooldown, right? The because you never know how long it's going to be until you have another one, because of procs and stuff. So every time you cast a shot, all the lock and load procs that will reduce it by a second, you basically have 120 seconds of cooldown, and in that 120 seconds, how many shots are you going to fire? And every time you fire one, it's reducing it down by one. So like in 100 seconds, you can of course cast 20 things. So you're looking at like a minute and a half cooldown on your true shot. At that point, you might as well just have it automatically go, because it's getting down to that low cooldown. Anyway, I'm going to go into a little bit here about the artifact, the relic path, or the trait path. You start off with wind burst, of course, and you get wind arrows as soon as you start doing things. The next thing is going to be called shot. You're aiming for bullseye, but you're going to want to go this direction, right? You're going to want to go through called shot because you want to increase that damage there. The main reason you want to go through this direction is because of the things on the way are better to get to bullseye, and it's also less points, believe it or not. You got 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 points to get here. So wait, let's just try it. Start from here. You got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15th point for bullseye there, right? If you go this way, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Then you come back and do rapid killing, right? So it's 15 either way if you go through rapid killing. If you skip rapid killing, goes straight for marked for death from the gust of wind, then it's only 14 points. So your original path is going to be 14 points all the way like that. Your 15th point can go here if you want. Oh, and this is another reason why crit is not as important as versatility later on. Once you get this, your true shot increases your crit by 50%. So, we're talking 82% right now for me during true shot. It's kind of crazy. So that's why crit is not as valuable. And it's also why careful aim is not as valuable. Increases my crit chance by 20%, right? So true shot at above 80%, I'm now over 100% crit chance with careful aim, so it reduces the value of this talent. So you see how that all works together, how that whole thing plays together. Yeah, Windburst also applies Deadeye to the target. This is very, very valuable. That's why Windburst applies the vulnerable to the target, so that you can Windburst and then mark aim shot on your opener. Deadly aim increases the critical strike damage dealt by aim shot by 10%, so that's huge. So instead of just doubling your damage from aim shot, it's doubling it plus another 10%. This is pretty useless. Reduces the cooldown of bursting shot by 15%. Who cares? This is really huge. Vulnerable increases your aim shot critical strike chance against the target by 8%. So again, we have a passive crit chance increase that reduces the value of your crit rating. So it's like, who cares if I have a lot of crit? I'm already getting this passive bonus to crit on aim shot anyway. So, if we were to take those to that talent, and if we were to, during the top 80% while true shot's active, and this, now we're looking at like, what is it, 110% crit chance on the target with aim shot. So what, right? That's why crit is not as valuable right now for me. And this is why you always need to redo um, your simcraft every time you get new gear and every time you redo your add another trait to your bow, right? The second place you go, of course, is going to be 3 points into here and then get your Call of the Hunter, and then you go 3 points into Windrunner's Guidance from here, and go to Legacy of the Windrunners. So your path goes Windburst, fill up Wind Arrows, fill up Called Shot, Mark of the Windrunner, Deadly Aim, Gust of Wind, Marked for Death, Bullseye, Precision, Call of the Hunter, Windrunner's Guidance, Legacy of the Windrunners, and then fill in the rest from there. Start with Rapid Killing, and then you probably want to build up. The only thing over here is Healing Shell at that point. Who cares about that? It's a good, survivability thing. But then you want your Quick Shot, Critical Focus, Survival of the Fittest, Healing Shell, and then you get into your Wind Flight Arrows. So that's the path you take. And I think that's all I have for you today to give you an idea of how to work with your Marksman Hunter. One big thing, Potion of Deadly Grace is your default raid potion. If you're doing just 10-mans or 5-man dungeons or whatever, Potion of Prolonged Power is really cheap and easy. If you're going to pre-pot with something cheap and easy, go for that. Otherwise, for survivability, you'll notice because I have the Shadow Hunter's Voodoo Mask, I heal for 20% of my maximum health when I activate Feign Death, and then an additional 5% for how long I stay down. So, like, all of my defensives are up here. I got Disengage. It's like, oh, get me out of here. Oh, drop aggro. And I got Exhilaration, heals me for 30%. And then because of the Healing Shell, I heal for 40% of my maximum health over its duration. This is another quick little tidbit that I'll leave you with. When you activate Aspect of the Turtle, right, it'll give you that Healing Shell that'll heal you for 40% of your duration. But you'll notice I have, for Aspect of the Turtle, I have a Stop Casting, Cancel Aura Aspect of the Turtle, then Cast Aspect of the Turtle, right? And So what it'll do, watch this. If I click it twice, you'll see I get the aspect of the turtle icon and then the healing shell icon, but then the aspect of the turtle icon will go away because I cancel aura on it, right? And but the healing icon will still be there. 1, 2. So there's the healing shell still healing me for 10% of my maximum health every 2 seconds, and so there it went. The healing shell was gone because I canceled the aura, but the heal was still there. You can that way you can heal for 40% of your health, but while still DPSing. So anyway, that's all I got for you. Good luck, have fun.